Thanks everyone for coming. I'm just going to do a quick talk on some IoT devices that I've come across a few times on pen tests. Thought they were quite interesting. It's quite interesting to do some research outside of work, so I'm going to do a quick run through of those, some of the research that I did. So the quick, who am I? Rob McLellan, reformed sysadmin, started out making machines, now operate machines, senior tech tester at Trustmark, Lancashire lab. Most important bullet point, of course, right at the end. So the devices we're going to look at today, these are by a company called Lantronix. I've encountered these a couple of times doing on-site gigs. They make these devices where it's basically an RS-232 connection on one side and network connection on the other. So if you have older hardware, industrial kit, medical kit, RS-232 is pretty much across the board there. You can put these in and you can network enable that kit. So yeah, you might recognise RS-232, you recognise old ports. I didn't realise how old RS-232 everyone's on site doing this. Can anybody tell me RS-232 when was it first actually went into existence? Yeah, 1960 apparently. It's like, well older, didn't even know that. So yes, I've seen a couple of these devices around. Lantronix also make these other devices. There's network caps, so the ports across the front of that device there, they look like network ports, but they are also actually serial ports. Apart from the two at the end, which are network ports. So the idea is this gets you access to the outbound management interface of your firewall, your routers. You plug these into the serial connections into your console ports on your routers and firewalls, and then you plug a network cable and connect them across the network, manage your firewalls, routers from out there. So a bit of diagram from Lantronix there. You can see most of the bottom there, black box sat in the rack is that remote console server. Guys sat in the NOC or some remote site, perhaps through the network and gets the console ports on your firewalls through some stuff. Lantronix also make this other like embedded chip. That's like it's got its own network stack all built into it. It's just a network port. If you're manufacturing your own kit, you can basically buy one of these chips, stick it on the board of your kit. It has network capability. It has like a remote management interface on it, so a web-based management interface, and it's supposed to do some FTP, Telnet SSH for remote management. So the diagrams from Lantronix site here, this is how they imagine it's going to work. So you have lots of these little devices, Lantronix devices connected to your hardware. Then you have your admin guy sat running Lantronix software, which connects across the network to these devices. And you can use the serial ports, the RS-232 ports, as if you were physically connected to those devices. Again, similar sort of setup. You've got a sysadmin with an industrial setup here. All these boxes connected to industrial hardware. Sysadmin can be running the Lantronix software connected to all these devices. The software that this guy runs, there's a couple of different packages, but there's one called Device Installer that allows you to connect to these devices and allows you to sort of scan out and find those devices. To manage them. So I was quite intrigued by these devices. I've seen them on a couple of on-site engagements. A couple of times I've got into them because they tend to have default creds, so it's quite easy to get to the web admin portal on them and notice that they're connected to quite interesting things. But unfortunately, every time I've done that, I've spoken to the client contacts and they've said, yeah, that's interesting, we'll just reset the password, we're not interested in poking at the hardware that it's connected to. Feels like that's like one got away kind of thing. I was also on a big industrial site once where they had these devices, and they had like a huge on production line, lots of devices on production line, lots of them had these devices connected to them for remote management, and they specifically said to us, like, do not scan any of those devices because they are really flaky. If you scan them, they will crash. If they crash, the production line might stop. If the production line stops, that's going to cost us loads of money. Do not scan them. So again, it's like, it's the one that got away. Like, these things are obviously really flaky. Kind of want to have a play with them. And then I heard H.C. Moore of Metasploit fame on a podcast. His latest thing is he's got this like network scanning like asset discovery software that is apparently pretty clever at like scanning your entire infrastructure, mapping out the network, finding all the devices that run it, finding the firmware versions of everything. And he made this offhand comment about, oh yeah, we see these like the Lantronix devices all over the place, but you can't scan them because if you send any scan them, you'll crash them. So we have a way of discovering them without sending any packets to them. And I was like, what? How do you know something is on a network without sending any packets to it? Anybody, any guesses?
Ethernet? Broadcast?
Broadcast, exactly. It took me longer than I like to admit. Like, next day shower, I thought, like, broadcast. So I was intrigued, and so I had this hypothesis. I was like, right, I need to get some of these devices and have a play and see if that's how it actually works. So, popped onto eBay, grabbed a couple of the older devices. Some of them were quite speccy, some of the new devices, but you get the old ones pretty cheap on eBay. Bought a couple of them, stuck on my network at home, did a packet capture, sure enough. Yeah, they do a broadcast every 3 minutes. You can see them popping up like, analog device, analog device. So, hypothesis confirmed. So, with that, I thought, right, okay, well, I've got these devices now. I might as well carry on poking at them and see what other things I can do with them. So poking at the devices seems they're vulnerable at all. And there's loads of like little things about them that are like just not good practice. So telnet tends to be enabled, plain text management interface on port 80, there's FTP is enabled by default. These things support encryption, and I'm not sure it's all the websites have military grade encryption, but it tends to be turned off by default, so everything's going to plain text. I found one vulnerability in some of the older devices, in some of the versions of the firmware, where it's like an authentication bypass vulnerability, so you can get access to the admin console without authenticating. It's a bit of a weird one because in the later version of the firmware it's fixed, but when you look in the release notes, it doesn't mention this at all. So I don't know if that's because they just accidentally fixed it without realising it was there, or whether they saw it and thought, I'm not fix that, I'm not telling anybody, I'm not sure about that. But I thought that's kind of a cool bug, but I want something better, I want to be able to combine multiple devices and get the latest ones. So I sort of took a step back, thought maybe there's a better approach to doing this. We want to get access to all these devices around there. And I noticed that they tend to have like weak default passwords. The passwords are usually the same across all of them. So rather than going after all of these devices, this guy up here is running the Lanternx software. He already has access to all of them. He can find them on the network, he can connect to them. So maybe this guy is the better target to go after. So he's running this Lanternx software, this device and store software. I wondered, is there any vulnerabilities in that software that allow us to compromise his workstation? Then we can get access to all these. And then, additional gravy. If this guy's on a corporate network, if he's got an AD joint machine, maybe we can pop through his machine and into the internal network as well. So this guy's a better target. So he's running device installer, so enter device installer. I go off, I download it, I install it. This is what it looks like. So it does a scan of your network. You'll find the devices that are connected. Here's some devices I had sat on my network. And again, I noticed there's this sort of behavior across a lot of Lanternx applications where you can define global credentials. So these are the admin credentials that are expected to exist across every single machine, same username and password at every single machine. That's interesting. I'll play with this. It doesn't actually open any additional ports on the machine or anything like that, so it's not adding any network attack surface you can get to. So I thought, okay, well, how does it do this network discovery when it's scanning across the network? So did some packet caps. Sorry, Cat, it's Wireshark. I did use TCP dump at various points, but I thought for this presentation, Wireshark looks better.
It does.
So we can see it does this UDP broadcast across the network on these high ports, 43282, 28647. The Lanternx devices, if they're present, will then respond with packets that look like this. So I thought, right, okay, well, what if I not in some Python and I imitate a Lanternx device on the network and I respond? I've inserted myself into the conversation there. Maybe I can start fuzzing the traffic that's going back to the device installer software. So I tried doing that. I wasn't really able to get it to do anything interesting. I couldn't make the application come unstable or anything like that. But in doing that, I noticed I was able to figure out the structure of some of the packets, or some of the bits that are in the packets. So we can see that 0007 bit at the side there. That's the version of the firmware that's installed on the device. 5533 is like a device type. We've got lots of types of devices like that. Identifies which type of device it is. And then in blue at the bottom there, that's the device ID. So each of these devices has a unique device ID, which says just based on the MAC address. That's the device ID that gets embedded in that response packet. So continued sniffing packets, couldn't really figure out anything useful to do with this UDP broadcast. So I thought, okay, what's it doing next then? So when you then click on the device within the device installer, what it does is the device installer software connects over FTP to the device, and it gives it those global admin creds to authenticate to FTP. And then it pulls down a configuration file that has the actual configuration of the device on it. So I thought, okay, brilliant, that's a nice easy way we can get a quick win. And it's not quite restricted, it shouldn't be a large device on the network, wait for someone to run the device installer, as soon as they try and click on this mysterious device disappear, and map up for admin creds. And those are the same across all of the others on the network. So that's quite cool. But I thought I could go a little bit better than that. So I started looking at the actual config file that gets delivered across FTP. And it looks a little bit like this, so it turns out it's an XML file. Now, I've had fun before with XML files. You can do things like XXE injection into them. I'm not going to go into XXE injection in depth here, because it takes me about 20 minutes, but I am on the clock already. If you want to know about it, go to the Portsmouth website, they've got a really good lab to walk through. But essentially what you can do is embed references to data outside of your XML file using XXE injection. So what you can do with that is you can sort of reference files that might be on the hard drive of the local machine that's parsing the XML. You can pull the data out of those files, and you can also refer to network locations, so you can connect to web servers, FTP servers, SMB shares. So what that effectively means is you can pull data out of a local file, take that data, and put it in a GET request to a web server that you control, and send data from the local file system to yourself, to your web server, so you can extract files that way. So I put together a payload to do that and embedded it in the config file and then on the device installer software. So we've got here, I've got the spoofer at the top there, a couple of lines of Python that spoofs the electronics device. So we hit that off. And at the bottom, I'm tailing the log file from the FTP server that is going to pull the config file down. And on the other side, I'm tailing the logs from the web server that it's going to connect to. And this is just demonstrating that on the file system of the host that's running device installer, there is a file that contains the text, hello world. So we now run device installer. We see the spoofer start spoofing packets saying, yo, I'm on my device, honest. And then that 172 that's appeared in the device list there, that's actually my laptop, that's our spoof device. And then we see at the bottom, connects to the client, downloads config, failed initially, then grabs the config file, and we see that top there, hello world, is the contents of the file that is pulled from the file system. So we're able to echo back the contents of files in the local file system. So that's pretty cool. Like an actual genuine vulnerability. The other thing that you can do with this is you can connect to SMB shares. So if I run Responder on my local host, and then we reference an SMB share in our config file rather than the local file system, we run the same process again, spoofer kicks in, spoofs and says, yo, I'm definitely an electronic device. Admin comes along, clicks on our device. It just then essentially connects to our SMB share, and we get the password hash of the user that's on that device running the software. So we can then crack that hash, log into his machine, start spraying that hash around the network. If that's AD joined, happy days, we can start spraying that to other machines that we might have access to. So I thought, pretty cool, we've got an actual vulnerability. So I thought I'd better report this to Electronics. So reached out to them. Hey Electronics, I've got a vulnerability. Sent them an email, got no response, sent them another email, got no response, wait a week, sent another email, no response, another week. On and on. Reached out to them on LinkedIn through the corporate account. Hey, I'm trying to get in contact with the security team. I've got a security vulnerability. No response. They're disgusting. So I then reached out to CERT and reported to them. CERT then reached out to Electronics. CERT reached out to me, you've got a problem. Dragged into the conversation. Then it sort of took a comedy turn because Electronics joined the conversation and said, oh, device installer, that's like really old. Like, I don't support that anymore. It's end of life. And I thought, that's strange, because like I downloaded it not long ago, and it didn't say anything in the release notes about it end of life or near end of life. So I went back to the Electronics website just to check, is it in there somewhere? I've just missed it. It's disappeared from the download page. It's no longer there anymore. Well, that's really weird. So I'll go back and ask them, but just before I do, just click a little bit more around the Lantronix website. So I clicked around again, and sure enough, they've got a discontinued products page. And right at the top there's Lantronix, there's the device installer software. But okay, it's discontinued. And then I looked at the date one, and it was discontinued on the 2nd of April this year. So a couple of weeks after I had a vulnerability, they just went, kill the products! So I'm sure it's like a coincidence that they were always going to end up like it this year. I thought, okay. So I said, well, you've killed this product, you've ended up like it, fair enough. But there'll still be guys out, there'll still be people out there who've got the hardware that they want to manage. So what do? Is there another product that they can use to manage it? And they said, oh yeah, sure, we've got this new software called Provisioning Manager. They can use that. So I thought, all right, well, I'll go and get Provisioning Manager then. Provisioning Manager looks like this. So you start it up. Runs this little wizard that connects. Again, it's the same thing where it just assumes like you can have the same admin credentials across all devices, right? Because we wouldn't. Runs this itself with wizard, and I think this is going to do the same thing as device installer, right? So is it going to be vulnerable to the same vulnerability if I run the same payload again against this? This also has some sort of weird like cloud integration thing that I'm not dug into yet. I'm not sure what that is. But run through it. It's finished. It does the same thing again. It's going to discover devices. Is it going on the XML payload?
Just imagine this video face, isn't it? You handle the software.
Yeah. They have completely rewritten it. It's completely different. And we know that because, it doesn't run the XML payload. That's a shame. But what happens, right? So we don't give up with that. So I dug into it a little bit more. Found another interesting thing that this software does. Tried some slightly different attacks on it. Had another go discovering devices. And what we get this time is a little bit different. We got calc. So this one's got like a remote code execution vulnerability. Now I'm not going to go into the details of what that is because obviously I went straight back to search it. There's another one that you're going to have to kick Lantronix for, and Lantronix has gone a bit quiet on this one, so I think probably flip the table and I'm off the Christmas card list. But it's not fixed yet. So interesting. So this was sort of like interesting, fun research. I just thought I'd like run through it and run through the process of how I did it. Quick conclusion. I'm watching 21 minutes. Yeah. So lots of fun to be had with IoT. I think there's still, within the Lantronix devices, there's still loads more stuff there that I've not dug into yet that I can definitely play with. So looking forward to doing that. There's other manufacturers out there that make similar or what look like clone devices. So I'm sure they're vulnerable to the same or similar bugs. If you report vulnerabilities, the persistence seems to be required. And yeah, as I say, I'm not done yet. Loads more angles here that you can definitely issue. Like one of them is that I'd love to make one of these devices itself. A malicious device, put the payload on the device, and then rather than me plugging my laptop into a network, I can just go and plug what looks like an ordinary device into a network, leave it, and have it pop everybody who tries to scan that network. So that's me. Hopefully you found that interesting. Any questions if we've got time? I think time is lining to.
Any questions?
Yes.
Okay. So the work you're doing is based on IP4. As far as I'm aware, devices you mentioned also support IPv6, so is that the angle that we should possibly look at in terms of where the vulnerabilities lie? That could be done.
Yes, almost certainly. To be honest, some of the devices that I bought, because I just went out on eBay and was like, let's get the cheapest one I can get hold of. I got one of the really old ones that are like 20, 30 quid. I don't think they actually support IP6. The newer ones, I guess they probably will, and you could have some fun with that. But yeah, definitely another angle to exploit, to look at. Yeah.
I suspect if they're used industrially and used commonly, then they won't get swapped out too often. So it's a long, persistent threat on the hardware. Yeah. And if you've got new software talking to the old hardware that doesn't have a firmware upgrade, even, opportunities are going to remain for many fruitful years to come.
I suspect so. And I've sort of found a vulnerability in some of the old versions of the firmware. I'm almost certain that people are running these and not upgrading the firmware regularly because you'd have to reboot the device to do that. That means like shutting down what it's connected to potentially. They're not doing that. They're going to be running the old firmware. They're going to be running the old software to connect to it. when Lantronix said, "Oh, that software is end of life," they said, "This is really old. Nobody uses this." I don't believe that for a second. Like, I reckon I see it out there in the wild all over the place like that.
I think there's a big issue about end-of-life software in terms of how you communicate that, because there isn't a standard that you can sort of. There are people looking at that now about Cisco, because software is current, even if you're using it end-of-life. Like lots of people still use end-of-life software.
Yeah, but if it works,
nobody knows about it.
Yeah, if it works, they've got to stick with that. It's the one they know.
Particularly in industrial stuff, because it's expensive to change.
Yeah, and again, there's a discontinued product page there, but I can't imagine that people are regularly going and checking that just to make sure.
Just a bit of a comment on that. There is the website now that I think is being partly sponsored by Linux Foundation and Data. So that is a very good resource for a lot of open source container Kubernetes things coming out. End-of-life.data, go and have a look at it.
Well,
That really tracks lots of
there's a standard up there, EOX, which Cisco are trying to do in Oasis. There's a number of standards which are trying to so we can communicate this information. So it's end of life, end of support, end of damaging support. So there's a whole industry getting involved in that.
Okay.
Because it needs to be communicated.
On the standards for IoT stuff, there's a sort of funny thing I discovered along the way with this one. The devices that I bought were manufactured quite a long time ago, so the default password is pass. It's admin pass straight in there. That seems to be pretty prevalent. In 2022, I think it was, California passed the standard for IoT hardware where they said, for IoT hardware that has a pre-provisioned admin account on it, you can't give it the same password for every single device. It's got to be a unique password. So Lantronix went, cool, we'll give a unique password to everything that's manufactured after 2022 on a pre-provisioned admin account. The unique value that it chose to use was the device ID, which is that thing that it gives you prior to authentication. It's also the same as their MAC address. So if it's on the same net as you, it's just, oh, that's the MAC address, right? That'll be the default password. Bam, straight in. So they've complied with the legislation, that regulation, but in a way where it's probably going to be completely ineffective.
That's awesome. That's genuinely awesome.